Well, hello, and welcome back to the next interview in the series of Iowa Prison Perspectives. My name is Sue Hutchins, and for those of you who haven't been here before, I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction about what Iowa Prison Perspectives is all about. This is a collaboration between several organizations here in Iowa, the Iowa Justice Action Network, Living Beyond the Bars of Iowa, and Iowa Cure. The purpose of these interviews is to inform you, the public, about prison and the reentry process here in Iowa from all different perspectives. There are people interviewed in this series who have done time in prison, both in Iowa and federal. There are people who have worked in the prison system. There are people who are advocates, such as myself. And there are loved ones, family members, and other loved ones of people who are or have been incarcerated. I really would like to hear from you and hear your opinions, whether you agree or disagree with what we're saying here. It's really for you, for your information, because there are so many misconceptions about what goes on in prison and in the system. And so it really is to inform you, the public. And your feedback is important to me. So if you would kindly get in touch with me and let me know. Or if you think you should be interviewed, or if you know somebody who you think should be interviewed, please let me know or let them know and have them contact me. I can be reached at iowaprisonperspectives@gmail.com, and that's iaprisonperspectives@gmail.com. Once again, I'm going to be interviewing today. I'm at the Cedar Rapids Public Library here in Cedar Rapids, downtown. And today I'm going to be interviewing a friend of mine and a young man who has done time both in Iowa and also in federal. His name is Danny Akers, and I actually met him when I worked in the very beginning with the organization called CRUSH, which is an organization that deals with substance abuse and recovery of all sorts. And needless to say, a lot of people with substance abuse issues also have prison and jail issues. So he is one of the people that I met at CRUSH and who I have a lot of respect for what he has to say to you, for his story, and for what he's done in his own recovery process. So with no further ado, I will be turning this over to Danny, and he's going to talk about his experience here in Iowa in state prison, and then he'll also be talking later about his experience in federal prison. So I will give you Danny.
Hello, I'm Danny.
Explain what that noise is that we don't know.
We're in the public library and there's something going on with the HVAC system, I'm sure. My name is Danny Akers. I am a person seeking long-term recovery. I met Sue Hutchins at CRUSH RCC, CRUSH of Iowa. It's a recovery resource center here in Cedar Rapids. Geared towards, helping people get connected into a community that endorses recovery and all pathways to recovery. I've known Sue now for a couple years. We are working on a couple different things as far as, groups and such to get people connected. Is mainly the idea of that. Today, I'm talking about when I was incarcerated at a very young age. I lived a different type of lifestyle. I used to look at it as tax brackets. Like what's acceptable on one couch, and this tax bracket, may not be acceptable on another couch in a different tax bracket. So, the rules are different, so to speak. I ended up in prison at 19 years old for felon in possession of a firearm, felon in possession of ammunition, and drug possession. One of those charges was dropped. The felon in possession of a firearm was dropped, but I was charged with constructive possession of ammunition. And ultimately sentenced to 87 months in federal prison. I was sentenced to 5 years in state prison, and I discharged that 5 years in state prison and paroled from state prison into the feds. So it was a very long journey. I was locked up for a little over 7 years, and it was life changing. It was life altering, and it shook my entire life up. And in my perspective, I think that, all of that could have been, my complete trajectory in life could have been different if it would have been, some kind of rehabilitation or, enlightenment of, how people are supposed to live, if you will. Right.
Could you talk about your state incarceration?
So state prison was
At Fort Dodge.
uneventful, I suppose. It's pretty much just warehouse, man. I mean, I worked in the kitchen. I made 40 cents an hour. So, coming out to about $15 a month. I had support from my family. At the time, my mom and dad were still alive. And my mother and my wife would come and visit me probably once every 3 months. And there wasn't a lot of resources. There wasn't no drive to help us better ourselves in any way. There was no rehabilitation. It was just, you're housed and, you're good little inmates. And then maybe we'll give you a snack. And to me, I think that the system is broken and it needs a reset. Because if you take an 18-year-old kid that's, from the Midwest that, has never really had no serious, I've been in and out of the system, mainly treatments and stuff, since I was a young kid, down the wrong path though. Right. So there's no resources at the time to help you change the trajectory of your life. I was pretty much left to fend for myself, in a huge way. School wasn't really my thing. Prison wasn't my thing either, but I ended up there.
Did you get any kind of counseling or help from Iowa?
So we had a case managers that would check in with us to see about talking about parole and issues or whatnot. But it wasn't really number one. It wasn't something that was really looked on with good eyes from your peers in prison, and there was nothing really ever offered. It was just like, here's your parole date. We'll see you at the parole board. Good luck next month. But other than that, there's no support. There's there's meetings and stuff like that, I'm sure now. But then there was no support. There was no help. There was no guidance. There was nobody saying, hey, you could do this to better yourself, for when you get out. There was myths about all these things, but none of it was attainable in there.
When you say you worked in the kitchen, can you talk a little bit about what the food was like?
In all honesty, we made a lot of different food. I mainly, I remember making a lot of the bread and cutting the bread. So it was something that, we did there. We got the ingredients, we, prepared it, we made the dough, we put it in pans, we baked it, we cut it, and served it, and it was I think working in the kitchen in a prison is for, to be self-sustaining, I suppose, at the prison.
And at that time, did you have fresh vegetables from the garden at Rockwell City?
No.
Okay.
Never been a big vegetable guy either, I suppose.
Well, but were they even available?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I'm sure that they, utilized every resource they had.
And what was the meat like?
So the boxes of chicken actually, said right on the side of the box, not for human consumption.
Exactly.
And I seen that, and like, I still don't eat chicken, but I mean, it's a lot of pasta and noodles, like noodles and, chicken, or noodles and beef, or, and it's slop, I remember watching them prepare things for people that were like in the hole, like in isolation. And it was just a loaf with all of these things ground up, put in a little bread pan and baked. And,
That was their meal.
that was their meal. That was their nutritional value. Honestly, it's kind of like an animal in a cage, and it's really sad. I think, in my personal opinion, I mean, we need to reevaluate as a society, like what we're doing, what we're ultimately doing to people in general. I mean, yeah, I've been I've had trouble all my life. I had trouble in school, and then it went from, trouble in school, legal troubles, drugs ultimately were my escape. And then it turned into, from an escape to a lifestyle, and
a business.
And ultimately, I mean, yeah, that was how I made my money. That was how I killed my emotions. That was how I, dealt with everything. And then eventually, that spiritual brokenness, ends up causing you to do something different. But ultimately, I ended up in prison, and that was a sobering feeling. And in all honesty, they may have saved my life, but did I have to? I mean, was it that serious that I ended up going right from, I'm still a teenager, and I go into federal prison right into a USP. And I mean, there's a huge difference. Like, in my world, it was, USP, or it was FCI, USP, Ultramax. And you only have two of those in the entire United States.
And USP stands for
United States Penitentiary.
Yes.
And so in that respect, like you asked about the services and stuff like that I've seen in state prison, I didn't see any really. But when I was in federal prison, I was in USP Terra Haute, Indiana, and I mean, it was a violent place. And so, like, my exposure to that was life altering. Within the first week I was there, I watched a guard get stabbed several times. And that was when I knew I was in trouble, and it was time to sit down and shut the fuck up. I don't know if I could say that on camera, but, and just do my time and, keep it moving. There was a lot of, so my dad before me, had been to prison, and he stressed to me, don't take anything from anybody, don't take shit from anybody, and don't take any, financial gain from anybody, because then they expect something from you. Well, in federal prison, it's a little bit different, because when you get there, the administration doesn't take care of you. People in federal prison, people from your car, from the same geographical area. I was an 029 number, which is Iowa, and all the Iowa guys, they get together and they, have a little kitty, and they get you tennis shoes, and they get you sweatpants, and they get you all the things that you need to live day to day, half-ass comfortably. So ultimately, like, there was a big fear, for me in that, because, like, I'm not listening to my dad. I'm not going to say nothing to him, but do I take it? Like, what am I getting myself in here? The gangs are really prevalent, but I mean, I'm a big corn-fed white boy from Iowa, and I could fight a little bit. So, I mean, it's not, it wasn't that serious, but I seen a lot of little guys. I seen a lot of, people that aren't the brightest, get preyed on. And I mean, it's a sad situation. And, it's modern day slavery in a sense. I mean,
it is modern day slavery.
You put people in there and you have them building, switchboards for jets that are going to be used for war. I mean, it's modern day slavery, I think. I mean, that's just my personal opinion. I don't know, but I know there's people that belong in prison, but there's a lot of people that are in the prisons that something else, there's got to be another way.
And rehabilitation
Yeah.
would be a key to that. Honest rehabilitation would be a key to that. It sounds like that's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I got out of federal prison, and my dad had a business. I worked with them. Well, I couldn't work for any kind of family business when I got out. But eventually I was able to, get involved in my family business. And
And that's because your father had been incarcerated.
no,
No.
that was just because like they didn't want me, signing a check and then, writing myself a check and then doing what I wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, there's like the criminality of it, but, I got out of prison and I wanted something different. I truly didn't want to continue down that path. I mean, I wanted a family. I got out of prison and everybody that I knew, most of them, most of my peers, people that I hung out with every day, most of them were in prison, the ones that weren't started families and they lived, I mean, a lot of struggles in that in itself, but I mean, but they lived and they followed a different path. And I got out and I didn't know any of them. My thought pattern, was completely distorted because of like the mentality that you have to have going into prison.
The trauma of it all.
Yeah, I mean, I get in a sense, like, there's trauma that surrounds it, but
It's a whole different culture.
you got to adapt, you got to
Right.
adapt to a completely different environment.
Mm-hmm.
And then coming out, I remember coming out of prison and my first furlough home was weird, because I could see the gas in the streets, like I could see the pollution.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It was weird. It was really weird. I mean, the first time I ate any food from the streets, like I got a rock in my stomach and I was in really good shape, but it's a huge cost to get into shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it was so different, and I wanted different. I wanted something better out of my life. Like it was definitely something where I remember there would be times when I'd be at my window with my coffee cup, waiting to go get hot water, waiting for them to unlock the doors, and just wondering like, am I ever going to make it out of here? And I mean, like, what is this going to look like? And then when I did get released, I worked my ass off and I started a family. I didn't waste any time there. I mean, I had my wife that I'd been with, she'd been with me the entire time I was in prison, and I love her. And we started a family. I, started working with my father eventually, and with the guy, with his guidance, and we built a good business. And I was living the American dream. I had a bitchy wife, 3 shit-faced kids, and I'm literally like, I was paying taxes. I was doing all of the things that normal people do. And then it wasn't until tragedy struck in my life that I started using drugs again.
Before you talk about that, can you talk about how your family was treated when you were incarcerated? And could you have made it through prison without their financial support?
Not legally,
Right.
I mean, even with having money in there, like, because you can only spend $290 a month on commissary. They do feed you, you get 3 square meals, but
Once again,
most of those meals are not.
Once again, it is food that is meat that is marked not for human consumption.
A lot of it, yeah. And I don't know where it comes from. I don't know how they acquire these things, but it's not great. It's not good. I mean, So without having commissary, you're not going to be able to get, healthy. You're not going to be able to eat a healthy, balanced diet. I mean, if you're just, working off of the food that's provided in the prison system, it's not a very comfortable life. I mean, it's not comfortable at all. Obviously that it's designed to not be comfortable.
What you're saying is it ought to be rehabilitation rather than just more punishment.
I think that there should be more programming. There should be more options for an 18-year-old kid or a 19, 20-year-old kid, coming into prison. And they're saying, you're bad, so we're going to lock you up for it. They should be saying, okay, we locked you up. You're not living right, whatever that looks like. But here's, these options.
Here's
right?
what you need to do if you don't want to live the rest of your life here or come back here.
Yeah.
If you want to live in society, here are things that you need.
So for me, it didn't turn into a revolving door. A lot of my peers, a lot of people that I know still to this day, it's become a revolving door. So it's just like, prison, get out, prison, get healthy, get out, go to the center, get a job, save up some money, go right back to the lifestyle, end up catching new charges, jail, prison, same. I mean, it's just it's a cycle.
It's a cycle.
And its design is flawed. The rehabilitation is not, I mean, you don't have any kind of programming or
right.
Things that are, I know for me, none of these things was attainable for me to get to.
Right. And your family, how is your family treated?
In state prison, my family would come up probably every 3 or 4 months. They weren't treated badly, but I don't know. It's not the same. It's not like sitting on the couch or watching a movie with your family. You get to talk and you get to catch up, and it's nice. It is good to have that contact, especially with human beings that aren't kenneled up.
Yeah. Could you hold hands? Could you kiss?
No. You could hug.
You could hug
when they got there, and that was it.
A hug when they got there, and a hug when they left.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
In federal prison, one of the most memorable things about being in there, there was ion scanners that check your hands for traces of drugs or whatever. And the machines are so sensitive. Like my mom never did drugs, never drank. And there was one time her and my sister both got turned away because they tested positive on this ion scanner for drugs after driving all the way from Iowa to Terra Haute, Indiana. I heard war stories of other families. There was people that were filing lawsuits, and in there you could file a lawsuit, but it's just like I would assume it's just like because you don't really have a voice.
Well, and what you were saying earlier is oftentimes when people use drugs, their hands, they touch money, and that drug sticks to the money, and then the next person. So if you go to the grocery store and get change.
Oh yeah. My mother made that mistake one time because of the money thing. And she asked them, like, what can I do to make sure that this doesn't happen again? And they said, well, nothing. I mean, but money, like drugs are going to be, and the love of money
and certain
root
drugs,
of all evil, drugs.
Well, and certain drugs attach themselves to the money.
Oh yeah. You got people rolling up dollar bills and snorting lines of cocaine. So,
exactly. So then if I go to the store, if that money has been paid at the grocery store or gas station or whatever, and I go to the store and I purchase something and I get change and I touch that money that has the drugs on it still, then it will be on my hands. And in the federal system, I would test positive and be turned away from a visit.
Absolutely. And you've traveled for miles. I mean,
right.
It was very seldom that you've seen somebody that was local
right.
getting a visit,
right.
I mean,
right.
I don't know. I agree with rehabilitation. I agree with, if people are doing stuff that's illegal, that's, unacceptable, they need to be punished. But I also can see reform, and there's nothing to this day and age. There is a lot. I mean, there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of different things to change that trajectory of people's lives. But then there was nothing. Like, there was nothing. I remember my wife and my mom looking into see like what they could do or who they could connect with, and there wasn't a lot going on. I mean, there were some people with churches that tried doing different things, but that's just to do things for your kids or whatever. I mean, I feel like the laws are written with loopholes that only people with money can get. Like, if you go to the county jail here, right here in Linn County, you're going to see hundreds of people in there, most of which either, number one, committed very serious crimes and have money, or they're broke and they don't have anything. I mean, the system is set up to ultimately, keep poor people down, I believe. I mean, because when I had money, because I did become, pretty successful in business, and worked my way into a position where I was comfortable. And then my father died. I started using drugs again. And, ultimately went right back down the path that I was comfortable with, because of the trauma that surrounds that. And doing that, crime comes with that. So I was able to bond out, no matter what I was doing, I could get in trouble, and then, I'm bonding out. But then as soon as you don't have any money is when they warehouse you. So in a sense, if you have money, you can do what you want to do. It shouldn't be like that. I think that if you do the crime, do the time, whatever, like all of those things that you hear, but what is the point? What are we really doing here as a society? Do you like paying for, what is it? Do you know any stats on that?
Oh, we're incarcerated
How much
in
it costs?
Iowa.
How much it costs? It's got to be thousands of dollars.
It's 39,000 for the minimum and middle, and it's 54,000 for the Fort Madison. $59,000.
Okay, so if you took $59,000 and you invested that in some programming or something to do other than jail them, all of us are going to be a lot better off. Our taxes would probably go down, and they would be able to have a chance of being, productive members of society. But instead, you end up in prison, and there's already so much of a stigma in life, and there's already so much judgment that we deal with as human beings, judging one another. I mean, I know I judge. I try not to judge harshly, but I do judge. And I mean, that's the thing, that's what keeps us safe. That's what keeps us, like feeling however we feel. But judging harshly is definitely problematic in a lot of different ways. And if we use the resources that we're dumping away to help in a better way, I mean, we'd be a lot better off as a society.
For sure. Is there anything that you want to make sure that you have said that you haven't said yet before we close?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
You could have put me on the spot.
Okay, that's okay. I just want to make sure that you've had the opportunity to say what you wanted to say.
I mean, I'd just like to give a big shout out to the places like Crush, RCC, that made that connection possible for me to, forge a new path. Sue, for giving me the opportunity to get a message out there. And most of all, my family, for always loving and always supporting me through this. Drug court has been an amazing thing. And systems like that truly care. And, well, don't know that they truly care, but they put people in place that care enough to want to see you win. Thank you all very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this back around so that I can do some of the closing. Thank you very much, Danny. I'm really glad that you took the time and gave us your time and your opinion on this. It means a lot. And I think that there are some takeaways from what he said today. One of the takeaways that I think is important is that there is not a lot of programming in the state, and there's not a lot of programming in the federal system either. At one time, from the time that Danny was in prison, shortly after that, until the murders happened at Anamosa 3 years ago, there was more programming than there is now. But we are now back at the place where there's not much programming in Iowa. And that really is a shame. I also believe that it's important for you, the public, to know a lot of people think that people get fed really well in prison and they just lay around and, they have a good time. They watch TV, they have good food. They don't really need anything. And that is not accurate. That is totally not accurate. Commissary is more expensive in prison than it is out here. And you really can't sustain yourself healthily if you don't have outside support. Because even if you work in prison, the wages are very low and it is very close to slave labor. And the meat is not for human consumption, which to me, I think that is an important point for you, the public, to know, is that the meat that goes in both the federal system and the state system is marked right on the packaging that it's not for human consumption. To me, that's a little frightening, personally. And also that families are not reached out to by anybody in the prison system, really. They're on their own. And so organizations are needed to help families who are doing time along with their loved one. And the children of those people who are incarcerated suffer, in my opinion, the most. And like Danny said, he is one of many who had a parent who was incarcerated prior to his incarceration. You've heard that from several people who have been incarcerated on this series. That is not at all uncommon. Not at all uncommon. So in closing, let me say thank you once again to Danny, and let me also thank you for listening. And please do get a hold of me through Iowa Prison Perspectives. That's IA Prison Perspectives at gmail.com. And please take seriously, I hope you will take seriously, the need for information about what actually goes on in the prison systems and in the jails in Iowa, as well federally also, but particularly this series is about Iowa. Also, I think it's important to know that if you have any interest in reaching out, there are organizations that you can reach out to and be of help to people who have been incarcerated and or their families. So I'm going to say goodbye for today, and thank you very much for joining. And I will see you again later this week. Bye for now.